Hello there, Medicynth here, and today is another episode of BJD and a cup of tea. Today's BJD and a cup of tea, I wanted to ask the question, what's your status? Active, inactive, or leaving the doll hobby? So within the BJD community, the common status for how you are, like what your status is in the hobby, is summarized into those three terms: active, inactive, and leaving. So I want to talk a little bit about what I think those terms kind of engulf, like talk about kind of the nuances of what those statuses mean, what they might mean to you, and my own personal kind of journey ebbing and flowing through these statuses. So if we were to summarize, the BJD statuses are kind of like a traffic light. So if they were a traffic light, active would be the green, means go. You are doing all the things in the hobby, you are just pursuing it, you are green, you are go. Inactive is kind of the yellow-orange light where it's slowing down. Maybe you're not the same as you were active. Maybe you are just unable to put forth the effort that you did before, or just for whatever reason it's slow, it's not really to the same point as active. So if they were kind of almost two sides of the same coin, however they're not complete opposites. So red, leaving, is stop, right? So leaving is the opposite of active. Leaving is when you are stopped, you're done, you're leaving the hobby. Okay. Where would you see these terms? Well, these terms have shown up in different doll groups, especially on like certain forums or social groups. They also turn up a lot of times in secondhand marketplaces. You might see some of these terms show up there. So because of that, if you're new to the hobby, or if you've been in the hobby forever and you just want to talk about it, and kind of like me, I've been in the hobby for I think 15 years now. I want to say 2011 is when I started this channel. So somewhere around 15, 16 years I've been in the doll hobby, and I myself have kind of flowed through these three statuses, mostly through the first two, the active and inactive, not really the last one. But we'll kind of talk about my own take on what these statuses mean. Feel free to share what your status is in the comments, and let's get into it. So first I want to talk about the active status. Now if you are in certain doll groups or forums or something, they might have very specific definitions for what these statuses mean in their group, so be sure to check that out. Most groups don't. It's kind of a loose, but overall understanding that we all kind of just get that this is what these terms are. They're kind of self-explanatory, right? Well, I do want to talk about active, because I feel like active in the doll hobby actually can be broken into two categories. There is the public active, you're publicly active, and then there's privately active. So for me, I've been publicly active doing these videos, doing box opening videos, sharing on social media. I've gone to in-person doll groups. I've been part of some of the online doll groups. There's just been a lot of different stuff for active. That's public. Private is where you don't, maybe you lurk on the groups, maybe you kind of watch them or learn from them, or you just follow stuff, but you don't post anything, you don't have to share anything. You're just doing the hobby to yourself. I feel very strongly that you do not have to be public. You don't have to post on social media, you don't have to share, you don't have to go out in public, you don't have to meet other people to be active in the doll hobby. As long as you are doing things in the hobby with the dolls, you're active. And also, just to be clear, you get to define what status means to you and what status you are, because it's your hobby. Like, you don't have to follow my guidelines here. I'm just trying to nuance out some of the terminology and kind of talk about my own journey. But you feel free to, in your own space and in your own understanding of what this hobby is to you, use it how you will, say it how you will, do what you will. It's free to kind of interpret as you see fit and as the label fits you. But active is, I feel, definitely doing the things that you want to do, whatever it is, whether that's making doll clothes, making props, taking doll photography, writing stories about the dolls, showing videos, talking about it, taking the dolls out into the wild, or just playing with them at home, posing them, whatever that means, even just taking them off the shelf, giving them a good clean, putting them back, posing, whatever it means to you to be in this hobby, and whatever you do that brings you joy, you are active, as long as you are actively doing those things. And again, you don't have to do those things on social media or in the public eye to be active. You can do them to yourself privately, at home, all alone, and you are still an active member of the community. You're still active. You just have to be doing the things. I want to also say too, I personally think you can be active in the doll community and the doll hobby and not actually own a doll. Now that's an interesting take, might be a hot take, you might not agree with me. I personally, obviously, true active, you have a doll, at least one doll. But I personally think you can be actively in the hobby and be maybe pursuing that doll. Maybe you're just starting out and learning about the doll hobby. Maybe you're trying to think of what your next doll is, or what your best doll is, or your first doll, whatever that is. Maybe you're just saving up, or maybe you're actively like learning and interested in it for a different reason. Maybe you do face-ups and you don't own a doll, but you do things for the doll. Maybe you make certain props for the dolls and you don't own a doll, but you can do. So I think that you can be kind of active in the hobby without actually having a BJD of your own. Obviously, if you're going to make props or clothes or any of those things, owning a BJD would be really important and really beneficial, because it would help you understand the nuances of what having a BJD and having a doll is to use those things. However, again, I don't think that you have to actually own one. Like, I think you could still be kind of in that general active, but like not fully active. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. And you could consider yourself technically inactive at that stage. If you don't have a doll, but you're pursuing things that are doll related, you can technically put that in the inactive category, because it's like you're doing stuff but not with a doll. So I could see how you could separate those two. That's fine, however you want to interpret it. But I just think that you could still be very much involved emotionally, mentally, and even physically, tangibly in the hobby without actually having a doll. I think there's a lot you can do without the dolls that make you. But I do think if you really are in the hobby, you probably at least one doll. And there's different budget dolls. You can get cheaper dolls. There's a whole slew of things that you can do to get in the dolls. I mean, you've seen my recent videos. I have all my little blind box BJDs, the pennies, Penny into the Bonnie dolls, just the different ones. Those also, I feel, they might not be accepted in certain groups, but if you own those dolls, I think you're part of the hobby. If you are actively doing things and those are the dolls that you have, if they have ball joints, jointed dolls articulated, I think you're technically kind of in the hobby. Now, there are, like I said, depending on where you are communicating and where you are, like these resin dolls are very different from the blind box dolls. PVC kind of dolls are different. There's different jointings, there's different ways. These ones are strung, and then there's others that have like skeletal systems inside, that it's like a plastic inner structure, and it's not strung with elastic string. It's actually like an internal skeleton that helps the doll move and be articulated. So that's a difference. Open eyes versus painted eyes. Like, so these dolls all have open eyes. Their face plates have hollow eyes that you can pop the eyes out and customize them. Whereas this blind box doll has painted eyes. So it's got the face up is fully done, and it does not have the ability to change out the eyes. The only things you can do with this is dress it differently in different clothing and switch out the hair. The hair is changeable. Technically, you can change the plate too and switch it with a different face as long as it fits. If you saw my other video, there are ways to use these as well. But I say all that because certain groups have very specific rules of what they consider to be a ball jointed doll or an acceptable doll that is something you can discuss in their group. And that's fine. If you're in that group, follow the rules of the group, okay? Follow whatever definitions are in that group, be in compliance, because that's that group's terms. It just helps keep that group kind of in a niche and like keeps everybody on the same page. Here in YouTube land, we're free. This is my hobby and I do it how I want. And I just want you to know that whatever you're doing with your hobby, it also. Pull-up dolls are popular, but they're very niche. So like there's certain dolls like Monster High and Barbie, like there are a lot of different dolls. Okay, but those are not technically the same as ball jointed dolls. They are getting more articulated. There's more movement in some of these awesome dolls. There's even collectors, but that's a different doll hobby. That's a different doll community than like the resin and the PVC, the ball jointed dolls. It's a little bit, that we separate a little bit there, which is why I think that terminology of open eyes and painted eyes is helps differentiate those two, like versus these jointed dolls with elastic and fully customizable all the way, versus Monster High, which technically you can customize. You just need to remove the face paint and redo it yourself. And I've seen amazing customizations of Monster High dolls. It's a whole different community. I mean, I used to be in the MLP customizing community before I got into BJDs. So, you know, there's some amazing stuff out there, and it doesn't matter what your medium is as long as you're enjoying your hobby. But for points of the doll community as BJD collectors, there are some nuances as far as what defines a ball jointed doll. But like I said, I think if you are active, if you have a jointed doll in your possession and you are playing with it in some way or another, whether that's doing stuff for it, posing it, putting pictures, writing stories about it, as long as you're like actively doing something with the doll or related to the dolls, I believe you are active in the community. And again, you do not have to be public to be active. So those are the things that I personally think are acceptable. Again, follow the community guidelines for other places just to keep within their rules and regulations, because it's important to stay within that. And feel free to talk in the comments about your own personal opinions about what defines being active and what defines being in the doll community, because I feel like in order to be active in a community, you have to know what does that community entail? What makes you part of that community? So for me, I think being active in a community is actively learning about it, educating yourself. What is it? What is the dolls? What are the things about it? Doing something, whether that's purchasing or looking to purchase your next doll, your first doll, any of the dolls, props, photography, clothing, wig making. There's so many, because these are so customizable, every aspect of the doll has something to it. Face painting, body blushing. There's so much you can do, and it's so wide that there's a lot of different ways that you can define your activity level and status. Now, inactive is sort of the slowing down of that activity. Whatever you were doing that got you into the hobby, inactive is when you kind of are slowing that down. So for me, like I was very publicly active from the start. And so inactive, I was no longer posting things online for a while, but I was still doing things in the hobby. I was still writing stories. I was still thinking about my dolls. I would still take them down and do photo shoots. I would pose them. I would do different things with them. But I wasn't doing videos, and I wasn't posting it online anywhere. And I wasn't actively going out to meet anybody. I mean, for a while, think about COVID when we were in the pandemic and everything was shut down. Definitely not doing anything. But I was still involved on different BJD groups online and different social groups. I just wasn't communicating or being as visibly present in those groups, but I was still privately doing a lot of doll stuff for a while. And then I think at one point I became completely inactive, and that's when it basically everything kind of paused. I had the dolls, they have not moved, they've been living on the shelf. In fact, they're still very dusty. I keep them out. I enjoy looking at them from time to time, but I no longer write for them. I stopped writing. I stopped doing any more research. I knew at one point that I was not going to buy any more dolls. It just wasn't like anything in my mind. I knew that I had to stop. I stopped looking up information. So it was kind of like a stop, but I knew I wasn't like leaving. I wasn't stopping the hobby. It was a pause. I knew this was like, I can't do this right now, but I plan to come back to it in a future date. And in that inactive period, I would still sometimes do something. I would still like get the emails or check on certain groups and stuff and kind of pop in and pop out and do different things. And that's when I found out about these little blind box BJDs and started getting involved in that during my inactive period. So technically it was like I'm still doing some hobby stuff, but just not to the level I was when I was active. So that's what I think of it as inactive. And inactive can also just be a complete break, but you're just like on pause. You're like, I've got my collection, I love my dolls, I will get back to it when I have the time or finances or whatever is making you pause at the time. So I definitely have been there for a very long time. I feel like it's half and half at this point. Again, like I've been in the hobby for about 15 years or so. And so the first few years was very active, very much. I became a parent and that activity slowed down, but it was still present. I was still doing things. I was still looking at dolls, still collecting dolls. And then at some point it kind of just stopped. And that was my inactivity period. And now I would consider myself kind of dipping back in. I don't feel like I'm ever going to be active as I was when I first got into the hobby. I'm not going to be like buying dolls every year like I was at the start of the hobby. I'm pretty content with my current collection. I don't plan on expanding the resin dolls very much, but I may dabble in these blind box dolls because they're fun and they're very creative, and because they're already complete, like full sets with full faces, full everything, it makes them really nice for my current status, because I don't have the time that I used to customize these dolls and take them out and do blushings and do things. In fact, I have a few dolls that I still wish I could take and finish. Like I had plans for them that I never got to. Maybe someday, one day in the future, and if I do, I'll do a video showing that update. But that's why these dolls are so nice, because they already come prepackaged, and it's fun to do the whole mystery blind box thing. There's a kind of gambling element to that, because you're like, maybe you were hoping for one specific doll, and you're getting, the chances of getting that is like 1 out of 7 plus a million, you know, depending on how many they sell. I personally, if I buy a blind box doll, I'm usually pretty happy with whatever's in the box. I'm not usually too picky. I mean, I might have like a certain one or two that I'm like more drawn to, but if I'm gonna invest in a blind box BJD, I'm gonna be getting a doll that's like one I was looking at, I was thinking about for whatever reason. Now this one and my Bonnie BJD came in a complete blind box, just like, I don't know if you can see my demon cat up here, and my mini demon. They were in like blind bags. So there was a BJD included. I had no idea what it could have been. And that's how I got my little Tang Tang here. So that's where I'm at personally, just because my level of ability to put time into the hobby, to put time into the dolls specifically, has decreased a lot. And I've also been really enjoying kind of doing the props. I've been, as you've seen with my most recent videos, the mini-verse stuff with the resin, the UV resin, like mini props, these little things, are so much fun, and honestly, they're addicting. I've been having just a blast doing this and making this as part of my videos, and it's BJD sized. Like, it's like cute, it's BJD sized in some cases. I mean, these are really probably mini versus probably more Barbie sized and Monster High girl size, but they do also work a little bit with BJDs. I've had some success doing them for the smaller BJDs, especially the blind box BJDs. They're like the perfect size for that. But that's my kind of getting back into the hobby, and I'm doing that more because I need something that's more complete, that's like a one and done project. Just where I'm at, I only have so much time in my day that I can chisel out time to do things that bring me joy, and that's what being a part of any hobby should be, is about bringing yourself joy, being mindful, getting out of whatever your 9 to 5, whatever your, you know, labor intensive stuff is. It's supposed to be something fun and a break from whatever's your like responsibilities, right? So the Miniverse is nice because it's a complete set. You have a whole project in one thing, everything you need. You don't have to go collecting a bunch of materials to make a Miniverse thing. You have your set, you do it one time, it's done. Sometimes there's extra materials, sometimes you can get really super creative with it. And so that's why I've been doing those Miniverse videos, and that's why you're seeing a lot of those on this channel. And because I found a whole bunch on sale, I have a very large collection of those right now that I have ready to do. And because I can set the camera up, hit record, do a video, and put it out there. And the reason I do videos, let's talk about that real quick because I'm talking about my status here. The reason I've been doing the videos is, one, it'd be nice to get monetized again. Any little extra income would be awesome, but chances of that happening are still very low. And I'm definitely not going to make thousands of dollars off of this channel. This is just a very niche channel. I can't imagine. I don't have that many subscribers. I don't know. Even when I was fully monetized before, I only made probably in the 5 to 10 years that I was very, very active on YouTube, I only made like maybe $300 to $500 total years. So at one point I was making maybe $100 to $200 a year, 1 year, on YouTube videos. Which, hey, $100 extra is still $100, right? But for all the work that goes into recording and editing and uploading, there's a lot of time, and it's not worth the time and effort for such a little monetary value. So that's why if you see my videos have changed a lot recently, but I'm still posting, the reason I'm posting videos again is not for the money. It's not. The reason I'm posting videos again is because I need accountability to force me to kind of do the hobbies, to separate, because I tend to, after some really big life changes, I've been kind of stuck in almost like, I wouldn't say completely depression, but it's probably some PTSD and depression. And I need something to kind of help me motivate and accountability to kind of give me that little push to do something that I enjoy that's not sitting on the couch reading, which I do enjoy and I do all the time. I want something extra, something that's giving me creativity, something that's bringing me into the real world. I'm not disassociating into a book. I'm not just, you know, watching mindless telly. I am actively doing something with my hands, being creative, thinking, tangibly doing stuff. And that's why I've been doing a lot of the Miniverse videos, and that's why I started uploading videos again, is to give me that extra push to bring me back into hobbies and find joy again. And share that joy with you if you are interested. So the videos are actually more for me than they are for you, but if you enjoy them, I love that and appreciate it, and it makes me excited to share. But I have to do them for me and not so much for an audience, unfortunately, because the goal is just to get my activity motivated again. So in that case, with the active, inactive, leaving the hobby, I'm moving into from an inactive state where I wasn't really doing much to trying to be a little bit more active. So I'm kind of at that crossroads between yellow and green. We're kind of slow. I'm not going to ever, I probably won't ever be to the level I was at the beginning when I first was really active in the community and in the hobby. But I'm getting out of my inactive state. And that's a conscious choice that I have to make. I have to set aside time to do that. Otherwise, it will never get done, and I will just enjoy sitting on the couch drinking tea, reading with a cat on my lap. Which honestly is the best weekend ever. So that's what these videos are for. That's what I'm doing. And that's my current status. Now, all that to say, inactive can be whatever you define. It's just the slowing down of whatever your active level was. Leaving. Let's talk about leaving the doll hobby. Now, leaving the doll hobby is when you make a conscious choice to stop. You've decided that whatever brought you joy in the doll hobby, you've already reached your max joy, or it no longer does any joy for you. Whatever brought you into the hobby might be the same reasons that you leave. For me, I got into this hobby because I wanted physical characters that I could customize from characters that I was writing in my novels. I'm no longer really writing anymore, so that aspect of the hobby, which was a huge draw, like these are my main characters from my books. I'm not doing the books, I'm not writing, so this whole thing with the characters is kind of like, I'm not doing it anymore, so why would I keep putting that same energy into the dolls that I did? So that's been a huge influence on my inactivity level. So for me, that would be a reason to leave. Is like, I'm not writing, I'm not doing it, I'm done, I'm leaving. I'm not leaving, just so you know, I'm not leaving the hobby. But for people who do choose to leave the hobby, they do it for multiple reasons. Maybe it's a financial reason, they can no longer afford to stay in the hobby. Usually it's because they've moved on to some other hobby, like any hobby. Like if you were into Funko Pop, you know, and you decided you don't need to collect any more Funko Pop, you know, or you were into a certain fandom, and then that franchise stops, like it finishes out, it completes, well, you know, that's a reason to kind of end the fandom, it's kind of exiting. Those probably aren't very good examples because they're kind of whatever, but a hobby needs to bring you joy, and when it stops bringing you joy, that's when you stop the hobby. So where the leaving status comes into play is if you go into the secondhand markets on certain doll groups, there's usually, or even, I don't know, there's probably Facebook Market at this point. Usually there's secondhand doll markets where you can buy doll stuff from people who own it. Like a lot of people like me, you get in the hobby and maybe you've done a doll event and you've got a floating head, maybe you've got extra wigs, extra clothes that they don't fit your dolls, or you don't have a body for it or whatever. And, you know, it didn't cost me anything to get those things because they were part of an event, but maybe somebody missed the event and they wanted that extra head, or they wanted that extra wig, or that was a special edition, you know, outfit that they wanted, or props. You can sell those on the secondhand market. Like, I bought them, they're mine, I can sell them to you. So sometimes, because this hobby, especially the big resin dolls, can be very expensive, the secondhand market is a great place for people to kind of offset that expense if they're selling things that they don't want. And it's a great place for people who are getting into the hobby to find things that maybe are harder to find. Leaving the doll hobby is a popular tag in that marketplace. And the reason I say that is because when people leave the hobby, again, it's an expensive hobby, it can be very expensive, they will sell sometimes their dolls to get some of that cost back, maybe to put into their new hobby. Because hobbies can be expensive, right? We do them for ourselves. Or maybe they have to leave the hobby because they need the money from the dolls to pay for something else. Something happened in their life and they need that monetary boost. Whatever it is, you will see in the marketplace usually a post that says leaving the doll hobby, selling whatever. It's good to know that, because if somebody's leaving the hobby, they've already made the decision and they're publicly stating it. because it means that they are going to sell this thing to you. They've made the decision. It's a firm decision. They're not going to go back on it. So it's a higher chance of you completing a sale with that person. It also opens the door because it means that if somebody says leaving the doll hobby and it happens to be in a marketplace where you can click on their account and see what else they're selling, usually that tag leaving the hobby is a good sign that they might be selling other things. So maybe you don't want that particular doll that they're selling, but maybe they have some other doll, or they may have some other clothes or some things that they are selling. So if you see that little tag leaving the hobby in any of the marketplace posts, do take note of that, because it means that that person has decided to sell a lot of their things. Now, I want to say too, you can leave the hobby and not sell a single thing. You don't have to sell things when you leave the hobby. People choose to because, again, like I said, it's a financial thing. For me, there's a floating head that I have in a box somewhere in a closet. I'm looking at the closet off camera. And that would probably be like one of the first things I would sell if I left the hobby, because I've got nothing to do with that head. It's blank. It's been sitting in a closet for years. I have zeroed bodies or anything I don't even have a character for it. It's just a complete blank head. I've got lots of wigs and extra clothes. I've got some of the default clothes that came with some of these dolls that they never wore, because some of them I bought as full sets. I've got extra props. Luciana, which right here, she's got like a whole mermaid set that came with her because I bought her like kind of full set. She's got all these mermaid props and things that fit her body in her like greenish blue color that I don't use, but I have them in a box. So that would be stuff that I would sell off if I was to leave. So that's something that somebody might do, but granted, like I said, you don't have to sell things when you're leaving the hobby. A lot of people do, because it's a way to get some of that money and move towards whatever you need it for, or your next hobby. But it doesn't mean you have to. But that to say, when you leave the doll hobby, you've made a firm decision that you are no longer active. Now, granted, these three statuses are ever changing, and you can ebb and flow through them just like the tides, or just like the moon. They can be phases in your life, just like anything. If you leave the doll hobby and want to return, that is possible. Nobody's stopping you. It's you. It's your hobby. You can do what you want. You can go from active to leaving without being in that inactive space at all. Usually there's kind of like, the usual casual flow is you're active, you go into an inactive status, and then you decide in that inactivity status that this is no longer working for you for whatever reasons, and now you're leaving. And you sell all your things or most of your things. You can go from active to leaving, and then from leaving to active again, and it's all up to you. Like, it doesn't matter. And again, you can be private in the hobby or public. That also doesn't matter. You can be active. You do not have to have a YouTube channel or post on social media anywhere, on any socials, to be active in the doll community. It is completely up to you. You can define these how you will. In the comments, if you want to talk about this further, what's your status? What do you think? If I didn't cover something that you think is important as far as these statuses cover in the hobby, let me know in the comments. I love talking with y'all. I'm not very good at following up because for some reason my app on my phone doesn't tell me that I have comments, so forgive me if you leave a comment and it takes me weeks to get back to you. For some reason, between the web page and the phone app, it's not telling me the comments, and I have to dig them out. So forgive me if I'm not commenting. I do eventually see your comments and will try to get back to you or respond or thumbs up or like or something. I love that you communicate with me and we talk. It also inspires me to do other videos. Like sometimes you bring up a topic and I'm like, that's a great video, and we do a whole video about it. I don't mind. It keeps me active. It gives me things to do, again, because I'm trying to get back into doing things with my dolls and just in hobbies in general, and enjoying things that get me off of the computer and in the real world, because that's what I want to do. I want to be back into mindfulness because it's good for my mental health. and I'm sharing that journey with you at the best of my ability. So I think we covered everything. My current status is dusting off the inactivity and trying to get back into an active status. So I feel like I'm somewhere I'm breaching the inactive and coming into the active status. We're heading out of the no moon, new moon phase and getting a bit back into a full moon phase. So yeah, that's my status. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate you all for following me on this journey over the years, and look forward to more videos in the future. Until next time, bye! What's your status?